Coming up on Tech News Today, is the Leap Motion any good? I got mine. We'll try it out and see. Also, Apple testing a bigger iPad and iPhone screen, and what hasn't leaked about Moto X. We'll tell you next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, July 22nd, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Shutterstock.com. With over 26 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code TNT7. And by Ting.com. Ting is a mobile phone service that makes sense. Save money with Ting. Pay for what you use, doesn't require a contract, and offers unlimited devices on one pooled plan. To save $25 on your first Ting device, visit tnt.ting.com. That's tnt.ting.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we try to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world. Start each time with the top 10 stories of the day, the News Fuse. The Wall Street Journal reports Apple is testing an iPhone screen larger than 4 inches and a tablet screen just less than 12 inches. These prototypes may or may not end up in final products, but the Wall Street Journal also reports a new iPad will go into production later this month, and new iPhone components reportedly entered mass production last month. The next iPad and iPhone will likely continue with current screen sizes, however.
Over the weekend, Apple also confirmed it's investigating a security breach on its dev center servers. Most of the information on the servers was encrypted, and Apple says it's safe, but they do also say that the hackers or hacker may have accessed developer names, addresses, email addresses, and since the center went down last Thursday, reports have surfaced of developers receiving unsolicited password reset requests. UK-based Ibrahim Balik claims he found 13 bugs in the dev center and that he got a hold of data from more than 100,000 users, but didn't hack it for malicious purposes.
UK Prime Minister David Cameron says search engines like Bing, Google, and Yahoo have a moral duty to stop the discovery of illegal images of child abuse. Cameron told the BBC, quote, "Put simply, there needs to be a list of terms, a blacklist, which offer up no direct search returns. The search companies will have until October to give a response to the UK government. If the government does not like the response, there may be regulatory action."
Leap Motion controllers finally became active today. The company began shipping pre-orders late last week, but did not release the software until mid-morning East Coast time today. Even then, some pre-orders have yet to be shipped. Leap also launched its app store, known as Airspace, with some games and music apps and other utilities, and even a motion-controlled version of the New York Times.
SIM cards, how do they work? Well, if you're using GSM call encryption, not really that well. Karsten Knoll of Security Research Labs has uncovered a flaw that allows some SIM cards to be hacked with only a couple of text messages. What it does is cloak an SMS so it seems like it comes from a carrier. Then you're prompted to enter the SIM's digital key. Another text can then be sent that opens access to calls and messages and mobile purchases, all that good stuff. It only affects SIMs running the older data encryption standard DES. But Knoll estimates 750 million SIMs are potentially affected.
Google is acquiring 6.3% of Himax Display, and that's the company that makes the display for Google Glass. Himax Display's parent company says Google reserves the right to continue buying up shares of Himax Display for a period of 1 year. Now, if Google exercises that option, it could acquire up to 14.8% of the company.
Must be ramping up some Google glasses there. Facebook has become popular in developing countries thanks to something called Facebook for Every Phone. It's a limited version of the site that works on feature phones. Facebook announced that the feature phone service has now been downloaded 100 million times. Facebook for Every Phone includes News Feed, Messenger, and Photos, and is optimized to use less data. Some phone carriers even partner with Facebook for free data access.
In February 2014, 3D printing is really going to catch on. actually a psychic. Key patents for technology known as laser sintering that currently prevent competition in the market for functional 3D printers are set to expire next February, says Dwan Scott, design evangelist at 3D printing company Shapeways. Laser sintering is the lowest cost 3D printing technology out there and can produce goods that can be sold as finished products, and consumers could see a huge drop in the price of these devices once the tech opens up.
Utah ISP Transmissions CEO Pete Ashdown has published a detailed list of government orders his company has received. Ashdown also told BuzzFeed in an interview that an order he received in 2011 required the ISP to install equipment to allow the FBI and NSA to directly monitor one of his customers. Ashdown says he is restrained by law from revealing any more details and feels he probably said too much already.
Time Warner Cable and CBS are currently in a squabble where CBS could pull its programming off of the cable service. Time Warner Cable isn't taking this lightly and told the New York Times that if CBS does leave Time Warner Cable, it will recommend its New York customers try out Aereo. Now, if you don't know about Aereo, it gives customers or gives people access to over-the-air television via tiny antennas over the internet, and that company doesn't pay a retransmission fee to broadcasters. Let the war continue.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Shutterstock.com. I'm about to relaunch a show I do with Molly Wood, and one of the things we do is we find that perfect image to describe the show when we post it online. Well, at Shutterstock.com, it's easy. I can find the perfect image or video for anything I'm doing, whether it's for a website, a publication, an advertisement, a video, any other type of project. I can choose from over 26 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, and you can too. Go try them out. Shutterstock sources images from around the world. Many contributors to Shutterstock are professional photographers and artists. Shutterstock reviews each image individually for content and quality before adding it to its library, so it's good. They have flexible pricing. You can choose individual image packs or a monthly subscription, whatever works best for you. And you can download the images any size, pay only one price. But the best thing for me is the search tool. You can drill down by subject, by asset type, by gender, by emotion, and more. Plus, the new Spectrum tool allows you to sort by the color spectrum. If that's important for a designer. You're like, I need something in these particular tones of red or blue. You can do it that way. And it's free to browse. It's free to use the shareable light boxes where you can save images, let your team look at them and say, yeah, I like that one. Ooh, I like this one. Get some opinions from them. And it's a global offering. But you don't have to take my word for it. Go try Shutterstock for free right now. No credit card needed. Just start an account and begin using Shutterstock to help imagine what your next project could be like and save your favorite images to a light box to review later. Once you decide, hey, I need to purchase these, don't forget this. Use offer code TNT7 and new accounts will receive 30% off any package. That's Shutterstock.com. And for 30% off new accounts, use offer code TNT7. We thank Shutterstock for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the stories in the tech world, very happy to have Morgan Webb, former producer on the Screensavers and from the internet.
It is a nice little reunion we're having here, actually.
It's lovely. It's great to have you on the show. I'm glad you could join us.
I'm looking forward to it. I tend to have opinions on news stories.
Well, you better.
Yeah. We got opinions upon opinions. Mm-hmm. We can start with the Leap Motion. Leap Motion launched today. It's as we mentioned, not everybody has got theirs yet. It took a while for the software to come. I got mine on Saturday. I had to wait until today, until they finally released the software and got it going. But I have it right here. I've been trying to play with it. Boy, it takes a long time to download the software. But I've got, what do you guys want to see? I've got the New York Times. I've got the orientation video. It's kind of weird. I got Cut the Rope.
Can you mouse around using the Leap? Because you're using the touchpad right now.
You know what? Touchless for Mac, when I install it, I haven't downloaded it yet because it was taking so long, would allow me to do that. Sure. Doesn't matter. Okay, we'll do cut the rope. Yeah, why not? So essentially, this is the Leap right here. It's this little device. It's really tiny. Comes with 2 lengths of USB cord, which I found very, very nice. And then, yeah, you just hold your hand up in the air, and you can. It's kind of like the Kinect. When you want to select something in particular, you hold your hand steady and you wait for
is it tracking both of your hands right now?
Are you saying that Microsoft didn't patent hold your hand steady to select something? Because I feel like they would have done that.
That's got to be a patent, right? There
yeah. Stop moving. We patented not moving.
All right, so it's cut the rope, right? Here we go. Boom, you slice with your hand.
Nicely done.
And then,
You cut that
and then
rope.
it cuts.
Do you feel like you're being at all precise right now? Because cut the rope is one of those
No.
games that is necessary to be precise.
Yeah, I know. Okay, there we go.
Is your sleeve getting in the way? Is that the problem?
I mean, it might be. Here, let me try.
Yeah, you're wearing your blazer
sleeves.
wrong.
Oh, you know what? I think that's what it was. Yeah.
So
Better.
It's kind of working.
Oh, too early. Anyway.
Yeah, but better.
You kind of get the idea of how it works. What do you guys think of this? I mean, honestly, going through all the stuff today, it doesn't really have that many useful applications in here. There's the New York Times. Like I said, there's touch lists for Mac or Windows that allow you to control things, but all the reviews pretty much agree it's early days. Is it a gimmick or is it the next mouth or something in between? Morgan, what do you think?
You know, I think it could be cool. It's kind of like how the Wii, everybody was very excited about the Wii when it first came out because it was this great new technology. We thought it was going to revolutionize the way we interacted with our devices. And then we kind of found out that it wasn't that precise. All you kind of had to do was fling. It didn't have that nuance that you really needed to perfectly interact with the devices. And also it was, for developers, it was like a whole new way that they had to think about things. And so, it didn't really get the killer apps that it needed. So in order for the Leap to, I think, really do well, it's got to have that precision and it's got to have the apps. Like they've got to get it into as many developer hands as they possibly can. But if it can't deliver on the precision, it's never going to get anywhere.
When I was using it upstairs before my floppy jacket was on, I found it to be really precise in most of the apps that I tried. Cut the rope was the biggest challenge, though. And because you have to be so precise. And that showed where it can be a little wonky. And you saw some of that, although I think some of it was my clothing. I do think that you're right, Morgan. You have to have the developers have time to come up with how best to use this. Right now, it just seems to be like, oh, instead of a touchpad, we'll use the motion. It's pretty impressive, though, for $88 and the tiny little thing that it is as precise as it is.
Well, do you think...
you really... Go ahead, Sarah.
That's okay. You go ahead.
You really do have to make sure that there's a lot of support for it, and it's not enforced support. I mean, Microsoft, I think, ran into a little bit of a problem with the Kinect, and Sony also with their Move, they forced developers to integrate it in a really non-natural way. And so, if there's sort of natural applications for it, that's going to be the best selling point for it.
It definitely seems like something you would use in conjunction with a touchpad, a touch screen. It just seems like another thing you'd have. Because I think ASUS actually partnered up with Leap. They're going to be building it into the laptops. I think that's when it's really going to be of real use. Because right now, if it's not integrated into the system level, like if you have to install an app like Touchless just to use the mouse, that seems like it's a little strange. But once that's built into future laptops, I think it might be something that you just kind of use, like you use voice controller, you use the touchscreen. It'll be another thing, another way to interact.
It's interesting that, and I know, Tom, you didn't play around with Cut the Rope before we did this live just a couple minutes ago, but it does seem clunky. But I think that games like that were also the way that people decided, oh, tablets are really the future here. They're so fun, you just slide your hand across the screen and, oh, this is a great way to play a game. So if that's your first introduction into something like the Leap, I can see a lot of people saying, I don't know, this just seems a lot harder. I don't want to hold my hands in the air. I want to play games like I'm used to playing them if I'm going to be on my laptop. So in that sense, I think it's sort of like how much grace period does this technology have before it actually is kind of perfect? Or people just won't keep wanting to put in the effort to see if they can deal with the technology that's almost there but still in its infancy.
No, I think that's a really good point. I think if we're going to be honest, though, I think we're all probably, either have carpal tunnel or are moving towards carpal tunnel. And so having an option is kind of great, I think. And so hopefully it does work out, and hopefully we get some great games and some killer apps for it.
Yeah, and I will say that it's pretty flexible. I mean, I've got these bright lights, and it's still working. It had to go in what it called robust mode, but it still actually worked in normal lighting levels. And you can put it in front, you can put it to the side. It's flexible where it sits. It's kind of impressive how easy it is to use, even if the precision may not be perfect all the time. And we do have to wait for developers to come up with like the killer use, right? Cut the rope is kind of the best thing I've seen so far. And that's not bad, but F and Dunn in the chat room said it's probably best to be used naked too, just so your clothing doesn't get Let's talk about Apple and their new larger screen sizes. What does it all mean, Sarah?
Well, I don't know. I have no idea. Asian suppliers tell the Wall Street Journal Apple has asked for prototype smartphone screens larger than 4 inches. Of course, that would be larger than the current iPhone 5 screen, but has also asked for screen designs for a new tablet device slightly less than 13 inches diagonally. Of course, the full-size iPad is 9.7 inches. Of course, the iPad mini is, 7.9. So that's kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, of course, the iPhone got bigger last year, or at least it got stretched from more of a 3.5-inch screen to a 4-inch screen, something that previously Steve Jobs had said the company would never do. So Apple changed their tune on that. Of course, the iPad got smaller. We have a full-size iPad, but now we have an iPad mini. So the company also decided, well, having 2 different sizes is probably a good thing. Sold like hotcakes. But a larger iPad, I don't even know what to make of that. I can't imagine who would want it, especially since everyone I know who's played around with an iPad and an iPad mini say all of a sudden the full-size iPad, while nice and has that Retina screen, seems really, really bulky. Morgan, do you think that this is like a Samsung model where Apple is going to suddenly make devices in all shapes and sizes just to see what they can sell, or is this just a crazy rumor?
You know, I think that it makes sense for them to look into having a bigger size, and I don't think it's necessarily for somebody to have and carry with them, but think maybe at a restaurant for ordering, or maybe embedded in a wall, attached to other, like embedded into your home could be something that's really interesting, and that you would want a slightly bigger screen for. Even maybe using it as like a television, for example, in your kitchen, or a second television, a third television. I think that the iPhone actually does need to increase in size, because that's where the trend is going. Everybody has these giant Android phones. I've started actually making fun of people with iPhones, because telling them they have tiny, tiny phones, which maybe is mean. I don't know. But, we have to feel superior about something as Android girls. But so I think it makes sense for them to look into having different sizes, definitely.
For the iPhone, I think Andy Anako called it looks like looking at a receipt, and now I can't unsee it because that's the 4-inch display of the iPhone 5, and I'm like, that's not enough screen real estate for me when it comes to that. When it comes to this bigger iPad, I was trying to think of a use case, and the only thing I could think of is some kind of like transformer tablet like Asus, because it kind of could be like a laptop, because if your screen is large enough, this idea that you could use a MacBook Air all day, but some people want to kind of have an iPad all day. Mm-hmm. Maybe if they're finally going, you know what, we can have a dual booting operating system. I know that sounds crazy for Apple, but why not actually have a Transformer-style iPad that would kind of be MacBook Air-ish meets the iPad, so you can have, I'll rip off my screen for iPad, I'll dock it for OS 10.
That's an interesting way to look at it, especially since most people, particularly MacBook Airs, will say that the 13-inch is kind of the sweet spot. Mm-hmm. It's really portable, but it's not so small. The 11-inch feels a little too dinky for a lot of people who are actually going to be on it and typing for long parts of the day.
I think some people just want a larger screen, like the 17-inch MacBook Pro, for instance. That seems ridiculously large to me. But, there are the LeBron James of the world, people with really large hands. Yeah. I know.
Seemed silly, but it's a really nice machine.
It's like carrying a desk.
Yeah, it does sound really big to carry around, but I'm used to the iPad mini at this point. And so even when I hold, the iPad, like you guys said, it feels gigantic.
Well, it's going to be for people with really large pockets. Right now the iPad mini gets lost if you're like 7 feet tall. So you need something. I don't know. I think, Morgan, you nailed it. I think it's sort of like specialty cases, right? Enterprise uses, restaurant uses, all kinds of tablet in the workplace type uses. And maybe just as like, hey, you know what? I want to have one that's bigger for watching video. Because I do watch a lot of video on my iPad. When I was on vacation, I watched a lot of video. Maybe a bigger screen might have been nice then, as long as it's not too much heavier. And the Wall Street Journal said that the next iPad, which won't be bigger, will be thinner and lighter. So if they can bring the weight down, then the size might not seem so crazy.
Yeah,
I'm just waiting for the flexible displays.
Schools, businesses, there are a lot of cases where I guess a larger iPad would be a good thing. How much Apple cares. Hey, is this going to really catch on with all businesses or just be like a niche market? I don't know. Maybe Apple doesn't care. It's almost like the Mac Pro, maybe, of iPads.
Maybe it's the really, really small iMac with touchscreen. Maybe that's what it is. It's a little 13-inch iMac with a touchscreen.
The computer's all just in there.
There you go. That's what they stand.
But they've seemed so resistant to complexity. Like, you know that they want, like, I would love something that is you can transform with a keyboard and everything, but I just feel like they're so in love with that one button idea that they're never going to give that to me. Like, we've never had an Apple dock. You know, all the docks you have to buy are third party. So I worry, you know, like, and they have no ports on them and no ways to interface with the device. And so I just worry that they're so wedded to simplicity that it's just going to be another giant iPad.
See, Apple's always had these patents where you could, I was looking at this with great interest a long time ago, for iPods that you could dock into your Mac, which would turn it into, any Mac would be your Mac. So they've researched this where you could take one device, dock it, make it into another. So the idea that, Morgan, you're right, they seem to shy away from complexity, but they definitely have the patents to cover it. So maybe if they did have a docking station, the iPad is the right gateway into that.
All right, I got to call time on the iOS rumors. We need to give equal time to the Android rumors. Ayaz, what do we know about Moto X?
We know everything, apparently, about the Moto X, which there's going to be an event on August 1st. Motorola is going to have an event in New York, and the invite says Moto X on it, so there's a good chance it's about the Moto X. Android Police says it has pretty much full details about the phone. Spec-wise, you got a dual-core Qualcomm S4 Pro 1.7 gigahertz CPU. You got 2 gigabytes of RAM, 4.5-inch screen, with a resolution of 720 by 1184, seems a little strange. 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera, 10.5 on the back. It's got 802.11a, B, G, and AC, so the newest spec is in there. 16 gigabytes of internal space, but no external micro SD slot, so you can't expand it. Android Police even had benchmark scores. Using a benchmark tool, it seems like it's a little bit like on the Nexus 4 when it comes to performance. It's outclassed by the HTC One and the Galaxy S4. And then press shots and press renders are already floating around the web. You can see a black version, a white version. It looks like a relatively unassuming design with a pattern on the back, a little curve on the top. It looks pretty understated. It kind of looks like the phone that people have seen with Eric Schmidt with. Morgan, do the specs sound exciting at all, or it just seems like middling?
It seems like, you know, if you really wanted to get a better phone, if you were like spec obsessed, then that would be something that you would probably pass over. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I love seeing any Android offering. I think something that's really appealing to people right now is the possibility of having like Android phones without bloatware. So, I mean, that's going to be something that we're going to have to find out a little bit more about.
And I think pricing is really important here too, because what Google is trying to do, Google and Motorola, I think, are trying to do here, is they're trying to have that one phone. Now, Nexus is that one phone for Android fanatics. They want this to be that one phone for everybody else. And if it's priced low enough, then those specs, no matter how they compare to the top end of the other Android offerings, kind of don't matter as long as they're good enough to do what this phone can do. And by all accounts, this phone can do some really interesting things that you haven't seen in some other phones. And
we're going to be, you know, we should probably be realistic that my mom doesn't know what kind of processor her phone has in it.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's happy with it because it does what she wants it to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything left we don't know about the Moto X, or at least think we don't know?
Well, we heard it's on all 4 carriers previously in the U.S. The pricing, I think, is still unknown. $199 is the rumor, but that's still...
Yeah, but I've also heard $199 at the Play Store or $199 subsidized through the carriers, so you don't really know like where it sits there.
And a release date itself, we don't know that. But yeah, I think... What about the idea that Motorola apparently is just leaking everything? Like, everything is out there about this phone. Shouldn't there be any like build-up interest for this thing? It's just like, oh, here it is.
Well, we are talking about it right now, which is a good thing. On the other hand,
interest.
Mm-hmm.
It is building up interest, and probably people find leaks a little bit more interesting than official announcements. I mean, would you guys be spending as much time on this if it had just been the official announcement?
No.
That would have been it, right?
Yep.
We would have talked about it, and then the next day, that may be a like, how are people liking the Moto X story? Maybe not, but that'd be the that'd be the end of it.
I have to imagine Google and Motorola love what's going on right now. I mean, they held. You know, Guy Kawasaki held an event that we think is about the Motorola X. Of course, that hasn't been absolutely positively confirmed by someone who works here. That was definitely there, but pretty certain that it was. You know, they did that. They did that to generate buzz. They're loving this.
All right, let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's show. Good to have Ting back sponsoring us again. If you don't know about Ting, Ting is no BS mobile service. It's an MVNO. That means it's a reseller of the nationwide Sprint network. But, you know, all these people with their special plans, Ting has always had a special plan. It's always been their regular plan, which is no contract, no early termination fee, no bundling, no weird math that you have to do, no overcharges, no add-on charges, no mysterious line items on your bill, and you got unlimited devices on one plan. Plus a powerful account control panel, so you can actually see what's going on with your account. And the best part is no hold customer support. You call them, 1-855-TING-FTW, anytime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and a real person will pick up the phone, and they're online all the time at help.ting.com, an active customer support forum, a simple and powerful help ticketing system. But if you don't really know about Ting, the best part is you pay for what you use. Ting charges you for what you used, plus whatever taxes they're legally required to collect, but no hidden charges, no recovery fees or other BS like that. It's just, I use this much, that's what I pay for. First, you purchase your mobile device from Ting, which you'll receive in 2 to 5 business days. Then you activate your device with Ting. You have the option to select a new phone number or port in an existing one, and Ting will break your rates out by minutes, text messages, and megabytes, and bill you at the end of the month for what you've used. Visit Ting today. Go to tnt.ting.com, save money, and better manage your mobile phone usage with Ting. Check out their savings calculator. You can see how much you or your company can actually save if you switch. Tech News Today viewers also save $25 on your first Ting device when you sign up. So visit tnt.ting.com and start saving today. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. On to Yahoo, showing a little confidence, moving around some board members, buying back some shares. What's going on, Sarah?
Yeah, so Yahoo repurchased 40 million shares owned by the hedge fund Third Point LLC, which might sound familiar because Daniel Loeb, Yahoo shareholder, runs Third Point and is the very active shareholder who was the one who got rid of Scott Thompson after his resume gate whole thing happened, helped place Ross Levinson as the interim CEO before Marissa Mayer was hired. So the deal is that Loeb will now own less than 2% of Yahoo and will lose his Yahoo board seat. 2 other board members, Harry J. Wilson and Michael J. Wolf, will also resign as board members July 31st, so at the end of this month. Max Levchin, entrepreneur of PayPal, Slide, who was a joint appointment to Yahoo's board between both Third Point and Yahoo back in December, is going to stay on. So in the earnings report last week, Yahoo had said it had repurchased $653 million in shares during the second quarter and had previously announced a plan to purchase an additional $1.9 billion of Yahoo common stock. The new repurchase agreement all seems part of this ongoing plan. I guess my question is, well, I mean, is this the right move to get Third Point out of a controlling situation? Dan Loeb has said, and maybe you can say it's a fair point, that well, Yahoo stock has risen extensively since Third Point helped change the management at the very, very tippy-top level, put Mayer on track to turn around the company, and maybe their work is done, or maybe they just, wanted to wait until a really, really healthy payout. Ayaz, what do you think?
I think it's interesting to get rid of these guys because they did cause quite the ruckus when it came to Scott Thompson. Ross Levinson was in for about, 6 months, and they did manage to get things changed at Yahoo. But the idea that Yahoo's making a ton of money, this has all been attributed to Alibaba anyway. So the fact is this investment predates most of this, most of their big changes. It seemed like Loeb had it out for Scott Thompson. I was rereading those stories and how he published a letter saying his college degree is not accurate, his resume is not accurate, and it just seemed like it had a vendetta against him. So Thompson out, Levinson in for a minute. So it could be interesting to see if it'll make a difference. But we haven't heard a lot of trouble between Loeb and Mayer, so it's not like something's going to change up top. If anything, it does free up 3 spots on the board of directors. The question is who's coming in, what kind of influence can Mayer have to bring in new directors that could be very, very influential for them.
Morgan, it was interesting. I mean, a year ago, well, a little over a year ago, because Mayer has been CEO for over a year now, Yahoo was, it was like a game of puppets. You had people on the board saying, look at what this guy did. He shouldn't be the boss anymore. He lied about the college that he went to, that sort of thing. Seems like things at Yahoo have calmed down somewhat. Does it make more sense for the board members to have less control going forward?
The thing that always cracks me up about these Yahoo stories, and we were doing these same exact Yahoo stories when I was doing Web Alert, which was 1 million years ago, that's the official count of that, 1 million years ago.
Yeah.
In internet time was 1 million years ago. I feel like you never hear anything about Yahoo unless you're hearing these stories, these sort of like behind the scenes machinations and people, I'm sure we can't swear on this show, saying mean things about other people, reshuffling of management. But I feel like that's all we talk about with Yahoo, isn't it? Like we never talk about Yahoo has this great innovation. Yahoo has this cool thing. I mean, do you guys use Yahoo for anything other than your spam mail account? I'm curious. I know I'm not actually directly answering your question.
Fantasy sports, maybe?
Fantasy sports,
Sometimes,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, movie listings. Sometimes I look at movie reviews there.
Good.
But
okay.
yeah, no,
okay.
I think this is Yahoo calming down, frankly. And I know what you're saying, Morgan. It's always the behind the scenes stuff. And we're still waiting to see. And we talked about Marissa Mayer on her year anniversary. It's sort of like she needs time to move this huge company. But this to me sounds like, okay, everything's fine. Dan Loeb doesn't have to be on the case anymore. He can reduce his involvement. He can let go of some board seats. Otherwise, he'd be trying to increase his power and pushing around. It sounds like everybody, at least on the board side, is happy with what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Dan Loeb has kind of said, well, guys, our work here is done. Let's go ahead and
mess up some other company.
Or
mess
I don't
with,
know, but
excuse me.
I think that they can say we didn't mess it up. We can actually take credit, or at least some partial credit, for Yahoo seeming like it's on the up and up. And before we might make a decision that could reflect negatively on us and keep our payout to a minimum, let's just leave. Let's just leave the table. It's good timing, I would say, in order for people to say, well, Dan Loeb, you certainly were a thorn in Yahoo's side at times, but you knew what you were talking about.
Okay, those guys are getting along. That's boring. Let's talk about a fight. Time Warner Cable and CBS in a fight over carriage fees. And this thing's happen all the time. If you don't know how this works, essentially cable companies must carry broadcast television networks unless the broadcast television networks opt out, in which case they can negotiate a fee for carriage. And pretty much all the broadcast networks have done this now. They want to get paid for cable networks to carry their programming. Well, CBS is in a fight over carriage fees in Los Angeles, Dallas, New York City, a few other markets with Time Warner Cable. Up to 3 million subscribers could be affected if they can't come to an agreement. And Time Warner Cable's Maureen Huff said Sunday that they would recommend Aereo to the New York subscribers if CBS was blacked out. Now that's kind of like a nuclear missile, because CBS goes red in the face when they hear the word Aereo. Aereo is the company that is providing you access to a dime-size antenna over the internet to get free over-the-air broadcast. CBS and many other broadcasters say it's illegal. Aereo says it's not. So far, the courts have sided with Aereo. As CBS took drastic action in this fight, they actually kicked Aereo, or they've kicked products out. It wasn't the Aereo, it was the Dish Hopper at CES. But they have required their reviews unit not to review so-called illegal services or of questionable legality, so they can't review Aereo. Where does this all end up, Morgan? I mean, if Time Warner Cable's bringing out the big guns, yeah.
It's so catty. And, you know, we dealt with this. I can't really talk too much about it, but like we dealt with this, and it's very acrimonious behind the scenes. Everybody's kind of positioning. Everyone's using whatever leverage they possibly can. The fact that they recommended Aereo kind of makes me think that they're a little bit desperate. That's not the action of a confident company with a lot of leverage.
Is it desperate, or is it just hitting below the belt? Like, look, CBS, you want to bring it? We'll bring it. We know you don't like Aereo. We'll push it. As Time Warner Cable has said previously, they were considering using a technology like Aereo if Aereo ended up being proven legal.
I get desperation, but maybe it's just being catty. I get desperation.
CBS and Fox have both claimed that if Aereo is legal, they might put their stuff only on cable anyway. They're not going to be over the air. So they've been running off at the mouth anyway. This idea that they get these fantastically great spectrum to broadcast over the air and then claiming they might pull it, even though it might tick off all the affiliate stations, all of the other systems that would make it very difficult to do this. They've been talking about this since the Aereo case began. And Time Warner Cable, I don't think they could care less about the carriage fees. They're like, look, if we can do our own technology like Aereo, we don't want to pay you guys anything anyway. If Aereo can get past this, I would imagine that a lot of cable companies will try the same thing, and Aereo or maybe Aereo gets acquired by somebody like Time Warner Cable.
I just want this to happen. I mean, I understand that I'm not in the New York market, so I am minimally affected. In fact, I'm not at all.
Right.
But you know, you mentioned like affiliate stations would get ticked off. Well, the affiliate stations need something like CBS or Fox. I mean, that's why they're affiliate stations. Go ahead and tick them off. I know I've worked at affiliate stations before in the past when you lose your affiliation and then you become this indie local news network that nobody watches. So, yeah, I mean, I just want to see this happen because I want to see who ends up winning. Because it's like, oh, really? CBS is going to go cable only? Really? Because they're so scared of Aereo and just so annoyed that this whole thing has somehow gone through some legal loophole where now they have competition where they didn't think they would have some. I would love to see the uproar from the public about something like that. I just want to see how it plays out.
CBS has taken to their radio stations that they own to blackball Time Warner Cable and talk about how Time Warner is trying to rip them off and remove stations and choice. So it's not like Time Warner is the only one hitting below the belt here. Like the claws are out on both sides. We'll keep an eye on this. Finally, let's finish up with Biz Stone. He's no longer at Twitter, but he has started using Facebook.
Yeah,
and what's he talking about here?
I loved this. This was fantastic. Oh, you just learned about this thing called Facebook that everybody's using? That was such a weird story.
Yeah, so Biz Stone wrote a blog post about Facebook, says he's been using it a lot more recently, and he thinks that, you know, the ads on Facebook, they're not particularly useful or engaging, and he has an idea for Facebook in case Facebook's never thought of this. He says for $10 a month, how about we come up with a Facebook premium? For $10 a month, people who really love Facebook and can afford it can see no ads, maybe some special features too. If 10% of Facebook signed up, that's $1 billion a month in revenue right there. He says, take a look at Pandora. It works for them. Why not Facebook? Morgan, what do you make of this?
This is a terrible idea. If Facebook doesn't have ads, how am I supposed to learn how to shrink belly fat with these 2 surprising tips? I mean, let's be realistic. Like, Facebook ads are terrible, and I think that they've done a very poor job of actually, you know, delivering on this targeted promise that we were going to get. You know, mostly I get diet ads, so I don't know what that says. But
but the Facebook users are usually fine with change. So if you came out with some clearly lined out charging plan, I'm sure they wouldn't overreact.
So you're a social networker.
Sure Facebook would have 17 different options. It wouldn't be clear at all. It would be 10 more cents if you want this. Oh, you want to have privacy? That's going to be $8.
Well, but this is something that could be offered by Facebook. Again, it's a tier. As Stone points out, even a very small number of people who were converted into paying members would bring, just by sheer Facebook numbers, huge revenue to the company every month. That's something that the company is obviously interested in having. So sure, I mean, if you say, would you like an ad-free experience? This is what you'd have to pay. Most people are going to say, nah, I don't really notice those belly fat ads anyway. They're just sort of over on the margins, whatever. I'm one of those people.
Or like me, I find them very useful.
And perhaps that's actually what we should be paying more attention to is all of our Facebook ads about weight loss. But it's like it doesn't really affect the people who don't want to pay the extra. It's a membership fee, so you get a cleaner experience. I think if Facebook introduced that, I mean, some people would pay.
I'm just looking at Facebook now. I just don't notice the ads anyway. Like, I'm kind of blind to it. And that right-hand rail that people complain about, I don't pay attention to it either.
That's like saying you don't notice banner ads on websites where other people say, well, I couldn't live without ad block.
Well, what would you...
Now, I know that you're not necessarily paying for an ad block filter, but it's the same idea. Some people do care about that.
So we'll have special features instead of sponsored posts on the right? Like, otherwise, I have a lot more white space?
Maybe. Maybe it's
Facebook could use a little more white space sometimes. I feel like there's 17 things going on every page. A little cleaner look could be a nice thing.
We need a ticker on the bottom too, and on the left side. I just want to see more and more data until my eyes bleed.
I don't see Facebook ads because I almost never go to the site. So that's one solution.
Well, that was another thing. He's saying he had to use it to communicate with people he was working with now.
Yeah, that was weird.
But that's weird, right? When someone sends me a Facebook message, I usually email them and say, don't send me a Facebook message because I'm not going to get it.
Especially in the workplace, right? Like,
yeah.
I guess, they're all different kinds of workplace mentalities out there. So I guess this workplace just happens to be like, oh, yeah, we love using Facebook to message each other. And that's got to be music to Mark Zuckerberg's ears. Maybe BizStone wants a job.
Or maybe he's suggesting that Twitter DMs get longer because there's 2 days more.
All right, let's move on to the randomizer. Everybody's talking about Kevin Rose throwing the raccoon down the steps. If you haven't seen it, my God, people.
Reenactment.
It's all, you haven't been on the internet this weekend. That would be the obvious randomizer choice, but I feel like there's not much to discuss there except for the fate of the poor raccoon, which has been discussed to death. I did see this thing today that a company that monitors North American ISPs says Google now accounts for 25% of all consumer internet traffic, which made me think, no, wait a minute, I thought Netflix accounted for 33%. So doesn't that mean like Google and Netflix? Well, Netflix accounts for 33%, or it did back in November, of peak time traffic. Google accounts for 25% of all consumer internet traffic, and most of that is YouTube. So apparently, all we're doing on the internet these days is watching videos, say, of Kevin Rose throwing a raccoon down the steps. Can you believe how big this is? 25%?
I don't know. It doesn't seem that crazy to me. Yes, I get your point, Tom, but it's like, it's Google. 25%? That sounds about right.
But they were only
25% of? Is it 25% of like actual time spent, people's time spent, or actual just data, like data packets?
Data, of traffic.
Data, okay.
Is the way they phrase it. So I'm assuming it's data, yeah. But a year ago it was 6. So it is just a giant leap in the past year. According
There's a lot
to
of cat videos right there.
It's from Deepfield.
Well, I think that's exactly right, Morgan. It's a video, I think, is contributing quite a bit to this.
Yeah,
and
YouTube
and viral stuff that gets shared over and over and over. You get millions of views racked up.
How many hours of YouTube videos uploaded like every minute? Something like 60 or something crazy?
It's something that boggles my mind and it hurts.
Probably
it's like 4 lifetimes a second of video. You'll never watch it all.
And of course,
Netflix
both installing edge servers at ISPs all over the place, so they're no longer, they're working on their data centers, but they're also trying to get the boxes into the ISPs because there's so much traffic going on. So that's going to cause a whole dynamic between, again, about net neutrality and ISPs charging for traffic, et cetera.
So you're saying, Tom, that we should watch fewer videos of viral raccoon?
I'm saying once is enough. You don't need to keep watching it.
I see.
Or maybe cache it.
I mean, sometimes it's really cute, like when the cat goes behind the door, camera goes behind the door and then the cat's closer. I mean,
maybe
the cat's good stuff. I mean, you got to watch that a couple times, right?
Maybe it just makes more sense to make a looping animated GIF out of it, and then we're not, hogging up all the bandwidth.
You're trying to save all those electrons. I like it.
Yeah.
I take it all back. There's plenty of bandwidth. Just watch a Vimeo video every once in a while, for goodness sake.
Spread it around.
Yeah, spread the love. My wife does work for YouTube, but I don't care. Just spread it around. Daily Motion has great videos. Let's see what's on the calendar.
Nokia is going to reveal something big. I'm air quoting that on July 23rd. What do we all think it's going to be?
Phablet.
Something really big? A phablet?
Phablet, I say.
All right. Ayaz calls it Nokia Phablet coming to you.
Building.
Building.
That's big.
It's going to be a large building. NVIDIA Shield is shipping on July 31st, and it's barely meeting a delayed launch window, but let's hope for the best there. Motorola will hold a Moto X event in New York on August 1st, looking ahead to next month. Also next month, on August 19th, Aereo is launching in Yahoo. They're saying, screw you, CBS. We're expanding. Samsung's DevCon is set for October 27th in San Francisco if you're looking to start planning out your fall. Ubuntu Edge smartphone has announced a 32 million Indiegogo campaign, hoping to hit the market next year by May 2014.
Excellent. Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
It's a message from James. It says, hey, TNT crew, in response to episode 798, where you're talking about how most apps are free, you're talking about how more apps might be purchased if you were able to try out the apps before you buy them. As far as I know, Windows Phone is the only platform that allows trial versions of paid apps. I've purchased many apps because I was able to try them first to see if I wanted them. I also recall reading an article about how Windows Phone had a higher revenue per user because we are able to try out most apps before we buy. Thanks for the show. Interesting point.
Yeah, I wonder if that higher revenue per user stays as Windows Phone gets more popular. That will be the teller if that's actually because of the trial period thing, but it does make sense. Thanks, James.
Got another email from Arthur, who says he's somewhat new to the show, but loves it. Thank you, Arthur. Says, I watched the video of the autonomous robots self-assemble and take flight as one, and the first thing that came to mind, this is from last week, first thing that came to mind was skywriting. Just think, thousands of these robots assembling themselves on a large field, then taking off, flying over beaches or amusement parks or large sporting events, weddings, etc. Add lights to the bottom, and they'd work great at night. Just a thought.
Arthur's a genius because if you put
I love it.
little LED panels, you could have a giant screen that just floats in the air everywhere.
Do you guys really love this idea? I mean, have you ever been to Miami with all those like club promotions on the airplanes? Do you really need robots telling you to go party with DJ Pauly D down at
You're at a romantic
mansion.
walk in the park, and then the drones fly over. Will you marry me?
The DJ Pauly D drones.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking this like sort of great artistic, you could have students do art projects and express themselves, but really it's going to be about DJ Pauly D. So actually, you're right. I hate the idea.
Not to mention, in order for this to happen, right, you need a lot of them, and a lot of them means that it's higher likelihood that one of them is going to not work and drop down and fall on somebody.
I'm sorry. I think the world turning into Fremont Street from Las Vegas sounds awesome. It's the world I want to live in. No, it's not. All right, that is it for this episode of Tech News Today. Morgan Webb, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. It was really nice to see you guys.
And if folks want to follow you, find out what you're going to be up to someday when you can finally talk about it, where should they go?
Morgan Webb, at Morgan Webb.
On
It's
Twitter.
my name.
On the Twitters.
On the Twitters.
You can also join in our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. If you'd like to have an effect on what stories we cover, we dip in there for ideas all the time, especially if it's getting lots of votes. Technewstoday.reddit.com. Go join it. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. We will see you tomorrow. Be there.